Hi there, Carl of UnTip Genius. Thank you for tuning in. So let me tell you a little bit about what you're about to get into and a bit about myself. So I've been a mindset and creativity coach for 20 years. I've worked with folks from all walks of life, including creatives, entrepreneurs, athletes, performers, coaches, consultants, all help them get to the next level so that they basically can excel at what they do and thrive, okay? So what you're about to see is an approach that I originally came up with to help me deal with my brain glitches. I didn't learn how to talk until I was 3, and then I always struggled with trying to find the right words to express myself. And that stuttering and stammering that I experienced for years showed up in my music, which was my number one passion for about 30 years. Started off with jazz guitar, ended up in world percussion. But the more I practiced, the more I tried to move forward, the worse I got. So that stutter showed up. It kept getting in the way of me expressing myself. So what I ended up doing was combining principles of music, think timing, rhythm, pacing, right? With physics I had learned as an electrical engineer. And when I combined those two things, it gave me an approach to free myself of the stuff that was getting in the way, not only my cognitive issues, but doubts, fears, and other things that can get in the way of us expressing ourselves and living our lives to the fullest. But it also opened up the gateway to what I love to call UnTip Genius, which are the built-in abilities of the mind and body that we all have, that when you can recognize those things, it makes all the difference in the world of who you think you are, what you're capable of, and what's possible in your life. So there you go. So if you recognize that you have more in you and you want to get to the next level, but you also recognize things might be getting in the way, the stress, the doubts, the fears, then I think you're really going to enjoy this. So let's dive in, shall we? So this is called Life as a Wave. And I want to set up the central game at play here. All right. So basically what it's all about, really simple, tap the inner potential that we all have within us. And then most importantly, be able to get it out of us and express it into the world and live our passion. So now what we all want on some fundamental level, the entrepreneurs, the creatives, the idea people, I'm going to say is that we want to be able to do our thing in the absence of all the stuff that can get in the way, whether it be external or in my head. And in the end, I want to be able to experience some victories, growth, achievement, have impact, make a difference, right? And for me, most importantly, I have to have fun. I have to be enjoying the ride. All right? So here's a symbol that represents this whole thing. I see it as a universal commandment, a mandate, if you will, to be full of life, to be fully expressed. It's a very simple but profound idea. So to me, that is the game at play. On board? All right. Now let's take a look at the other side of things for a little bit. Yes, we've got that endless to-do list. We have all the challenges of living life, dealing with the unexpected, the crises, all the different responsibilities that we have to follow through on a daily basis, right? The game of life is one of the most challenging things you could ever imagine, right? But then there is what my mind does with it. And it'll take a look at all the different things in our lives and it will judge it and label it. And in essence, it will then create stress and the worry and the doubts and the fears that can plague even the best of us. Yeah. So I want to get into the source of all that. Now, I like to call it the slippery mind. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the slippery mind is one part of the mind whose only job is to keep us safe. It does not care about what you know, does not care about your personal development, does not care about your awareness, does not care about your dreams, goals, intentions, none of it. It operates on a completely different channel. So it's very, very powerful, but not very smart, it turns out. The important thing here is to know that the slippery mind is trying to protect us, and therefore it creates assumptions, judgments, labels, explanations for why things are the way they are, et cetera, et cetera. So all the past conditioning, all the different decisions that you've made about things, including yourself, what you're capable of, who you are, right? All of that is generated by the slippery mind. Now, I don't want to overwhelm you, but I do want to drill a very important point home. So here's a graphic of reality versus what we see as real. So on the left-hand side, objective reality, and there's you and me on the other side. And in between are all these filters or lenses. And if you take a look at the upper left portion, you'll see the external things. You know, what we were taught from our parents, our friends, from society, from what we're told in the media, right? And then if you look in the middle category, you'll see physical filters, illusions. There are perceptual illusions and many others. Then there are the interpretations of our language. It's highly symbolic. You can say one thing, it'll mean 10 different things to other people, right? And then we've got the internal filters. You've got all sorts of different things. Something I call a judgment model, which is the assumption that there's good, bad, right, wrong, and I have to do something, and I should have to do something. That is a particular model or a filter, right? Then, supposedly, there are almost 100 different cognitive biases that are influencing our thinking in every moment. Right? Confirmation bias. We like to get more evidence of what we already believe to be true, for example. And then, of course, there's projecting, and then our past experiences, a whole bunch of other stuff. And these are all within the slippery mind. And one more point about the slippery mind. And this is huge. So you know how you're dreaming at night? Now, you might know logically of dreaming. But that doesn't matter, because when you're dreaming, it's real. Unless you're a lucid dreamer, but that's a different topic. But for most of us, when we're dreaming, that is reality. That's all there is. Until you change your state. You wake up, and then you realize, oh, that was only a dream. So I am suggesting that the slippery mind's impact, whenever anything of the slippery mind, the past conditioning, fears, doubts, labels, assumptions, get triggered, it is identical to being under what I call the waking dream. So when anything gets triggered, we temporarily forget everything that we know. And like tuning into a particular station, that's all the music we're going to hear. Does that make sense? And again, this is slippery, tricky stuff. And we can be highly intelligent, very aware. We've worked on ourselves for years, and yet we want to recognize that the slippery mind overrides that every once in a while. Does this make sense? So let's change the topic now. I want to talk about the good stuff, what I like to call the UnTip Genius that's built in to who we are, in our minds, in our bodies, and in life itself, actually. Now, there are all sorts of different approaches when it comes to the mind. There's great therapy. There's different personal growth topics out there. And it's all great stuff. I really mean that. Really good stuff. But as I mentioned before, it really didn't help me liberate myself from my mind. So I want to propose a simpler way of looking at the mind by asking you first a question. Let me ask you, when you have a positive thought, what happens to your energy? You have a positive thought, you're looking forward to something, you have a positive memory about something that just happened, whatever it happens to be, what happens to your energy? And everybody I ask, they know. The energy goes up, right? But now, there's a whole ton of other things that happen at the same time, second by second, as my thoughts change in my mind. So when I get into the right place, I notice, and again, with my ADD and fog brain and stuff, you know, those moments when I can think clearly and I have access to those better thoughts and ideas, more creative thoughts, yeah, that's of huge value to me. So I note that. Also, I am more creative when I am in that place. I can absolutely perform better no matter what it is. And almost most importantly, those are the moments that I can take in the beauty that life has to offer in any moment if I can tune into it. So there you go. That's what I refer to your state of mind. And I say that is the central game of play, your state of mind. So now I want to bring in some of my electrical engineering experience and the physics that I learned. And I want to briefly show you how a radio works, and then I'm going to relate it to how the mind works, because in many ways they are one and the same. So here we have a radio. Now let's say we have a particular station that we want to tune into, let's say 102.5. And there's music on that wave going through the air. And that wave is called a carrier wave, and it's vibrating 102.5 million times per second. And that's what that number means down there, all right? Now, you can also think of the radio as a wave maker. There's a little oscillator in there. Now, there's multiple ways of looking at this, but for the purpose of what we're talking about, I'm going to say that when you get that dial tuned up and it's waving 102.5 million times per second, something magical happens. The waves connect. That's through a process called entrainment. Cannot get into it right now, but it is a fascinating force and phenomenon of nature, entrainment. And when the two waves connect, the music goes from the carrier wave to the wave of the radio, and then it gets filtered through the speakers, and you hear the music. Make sense? So now we're going to take a look at how the mind both receives and sends out waves. And you'll see the radio dial on the right-hand side vertically, and you'll see slow waves down below, and you'll see fast waves above. Basically, the physics says that the faster the wave, the more details and the more energy it has. Very important distinctions to be made here. So now, if we take a look at my state of mind and I've been worried about stuff or whatever, what I put out, I get back. Whatever I'm putting out, that's what's going to determine what channel I turn into. And here, we're turning into the muck channel where the slippery mind and all its creations exist. The fears, the doubts, the past, the upsets, all of it. In contrast, if we take a look at the state of mind in a higher state, physics says that we will then tune into what I call the clear channel, the high definition channel, where all the things that we want to experience, the more energy, the clarity of thought, the creativity, being able to express ourselves, being fully alive, that's the channel that exists. Now, there are many, many channels here, all right? This is one page of 1,000, but you're going to get a big picture view here of the game at play. And what is that? It is going from a lower state to a higher state. Simple. Not easy. Not easy. Why? Because of the slippery mind, right? And so a key distinction here is that we do not want to force the mind into compliance. We don't want to manage it. We don't want to wage war on it. None of that stuff works because it's got a paradoxical effect that the more you try to push and shove the mind, the more it can kick back at us. So here, the dance, the game, is about enticing the mind. That's it. So the game at play is learning how to tune into the clear channel. Oh, and by the way, I also like to call it the creation station because that is when I get the most ideas and I'm flowing, yeah? So now the question becomes, how do we do that? How do we entice the mind to change channels? Again, there's all sorts of approaches out there and whatnot, but what I created for myself originally, again, to deal with my cognitive issues and then ultimately to find my UnTip Genius, I created over 3 dozen what I call wave tools. And I'm using principles, again, from music, being in rhythm, being in flow, being absolutely essential. That's another part of this picture. And so these wave tools will help me get into rhythm, get into step, get into sync with what I'm doing. And it'll also help me tune to that clear channel so that in the end, I can be fully expressed. That's a simple idea. So what we have, and I don't have time to get into this right now, but hopefully you'll get a sense of this. And what has helped me with my ADD so that I'm now drumming, singing, dancing, playing tennis, doing all sorts of things, talking like I am right now on camera, better at 55 than when I was a kid doing a lot of these things. And it is so beyond exciting to be able to finally have what's in me and get it out, and effortlessly too. And that's what I offer you, is a way to expand on wherever you're at in terms of your ability to express yourself and get your work out there. But there's always an up-leveling to be had. Moving towards mastery, I call it. It's a never-ending game, and I love it. So back to the topic, using feedback loops to know what channel your mind is tuned into. So I can identify what channel I'm tuned into by the quality of my thoughts. I can tell if I'm tuned into the muck channel or the crap channel, or if I'm tuned into the clear channel. There are different thought streams that occur. And if I know where they're coming from, then I can identify and use it as feedback in real time. Also, my senses. Now, this is very subtle, but visually, if I'm tuned into the high definition channel, I'm able to pick up on the details, the nuances, the subtleties, the whispers. Versus if I'm in a lower state, I simply cannot tune into that because that doesn't exist. So then most importantly for me, I use my body. The body reflects what's going on in the mind instantly. And so when I know what to look for in my body, it tells me what state I'm in, what channel am I tuned into. Am I fighting the flow, which is one part of my mind I call the controller, gets in the way and tries to do the doing. It tries to play the music when it's not the job for it to do. It's really, how do I set up myself to be a conduit or a vessel for the music to come through me, just like a radio? Very important distinction there. So again, here, the number one thing to remember about life as a wave that, in my view, stands out beyond anything I've seen out there is that these set of distinctions will let us monitor, check in with ourselves and with our state of mind in real time, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. So these are no longer personal growth concepts to remember and to try and get myself to live, but now I'm using feedback loops to determine conclusively, because this is all empirical, measurable stuff. It'll let me know conclusively, what channel am I in, and am I in flow or not? All right, so there you go. So what we have in conclusion is what I consider to be a universal approach to, yes, ultimately achieve our goals, our objectives, whatever we're working on, but also developing our talents, our skills, being the best that we can be. And that's part of the fun of it for me. And, along with performing and using our body, whether in sports or performing, our talent, it also helps us transform our challenges into new growth. So there you go. Welcome to Life is a Wave and doing you to the fullest. There you go. So I hope you enjoyed this little tiny slice of what it is to live your life as a wave and what it can get us. So I know that this world needs us to show up more than ever. We need you, fully expressed, doing our thing, shining your light, however you want to express it. So if this made sense to you, and you can see the value that you potentially have for you in helping you get to the next stage of what you're here to do, I'd like to invite you for what I call a free your mind, find the flow session. There's no cost. And what we would do is talk about your particular mission at play, what you're working on, what you do, the challenges that are in the way, and then get into how we can start applying some of the concepts that you just learned about into your life. So if this seems interesting to you, go ahead, click on the button below, and we'll see you on the other side. Hope you enjoyed this.